Judicial review against plans to dual parts of the A47 in Norfolk begins in the High Court today. Green campaigner Andrew Boswell has raised more than £50,000 to take the government to court over its proposals to dual the stretches between Blowfield and North Birmingham and North Tuddenham and Easton, and also a third plan to improve the Thickthorn roundabout. Now, the argument that it could have on carbon emissions, but those in favour of dualling say the A47 will become safer, journey times will be reduced and the local economy will benefit. Let's talk to Dr. Andrew Boswell, who's already in London ahead of this case this morning. He joins us now. Thanks very much for joining us. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Chris.
Just outline, if you can, why you think the government's got this wrong, because we know, of course, that when permission is granted for any major road project, the carbon emissions, the environmental consequences have to be considered. But your argument is that they've only considered these three different projects individually and not cumulatively. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. You've just put the legal argument in the nutshell, really. And, essentially this is not about what I think, actually. This is actually about the law and whether the government, when they make decisions on road schemes, actually across the whole UK, but particularly these three ones in Norfolk in this case, whether they actually are following the law properly. And that's what the judicial review will look at and the judge will review.
So is there a difference between the individual carbon emissions of a project and the cumulative?
Well, if you have four schemes like you have in Norfolk, as you say, the three A47 schemes and the Norwich Western link all coming together at the same time, there is a cumulative effect. I mean, it's straightforward and obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose environmental impact of each of these schemes, and so therefore we've considered it, and that's enough.
Yeah, but the law, the environmental impact assessment regulations actually say that the cumulative impact of projects should be considered with other projects which are reasonably foreseeable at the same time. And that's the crux of the legal matter.
And it's taken quite some effort from you to get to this point, hasn't it? You've had to raise £50,000, more than that, to get to this point, haven't you? Talk me through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this has been a very, very long thing. I mean, this is not a 2-year project, actually. This is 10, 20-year project for me. I've been proposing different models for how transport is developed in Norfolk for 20 years. But the last 2 years have been sort of going through the planning examinations on these schemes. I put in all the arguments right from the beginning. There's every opportunity for them to be considered. They were highlighted to the Secretary of State in the examination reports that they had to look at the cumulative carbon assessments, and then the Secretary of State didn't actually do that properly. That's our case. So it's been a very long haul for me, Chris. You're dead right.
What about the other arguments here, that there are lots of people who want to see these projects go ahead, and they talk about making the road more safe, reducing journey times, that they talk about benefits of the local economy. Does there come a point where those arguments outweigh the environmental impacts, do you think?
Well, the situation we're in is that those arguments have always been used to outweigh the environmental arguments historically. And we're now in a situation where it's clear that climate change is really cutting in. I mean, you were talking just a minute ago on the storms and flooding in West Norfolk. And, we see time and time again, weather in just this country, getting very disturbed. We had the wildfires last year in Norfolk, for example. But, at the moment, there's been heat waves, records broken in Asia, in Canada, in southern Europe. These record temperatures last month. So we're at a point where actually we need to turn around what's been the historic situation of economic growth and all these other factors outweighing the environmental impacts. Now we have to really seriously look at the environmental impacts of everything we do.
And I suppose the fact that you have managed to crowdfund quite a lot of money for this, thousands of pounds, suggests that lots of people agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of people agree with me. I've had over 1,000 individual donors on the crowdfunder. I've had individual donations outside the crowdfunder site. Um, and I think also you only need to look at the local election results last week, actually. I mean, particularly in Suffolk, you saw a lot of Suffolk turning green on the map. We saw some of that happening in Norfolk, including in Broadland, including in the areas where some of these schemes are passing through. So there's clearly support for the environment over the the conservative policy of sort of their road building spree, which is what it adds up to.
The government talks up its green credentials a lot and says it's got plans, and it does take into account things like environmental impacts. But from what you're saying this morning, you want to ensure that it's not just lip service paid to things like environmental impacts of road projects.
And it's not just me saying this. I mean, the High Court last July found that the net zero strategy was unlawful. And this is the government's main strategy to deliver our climate targets and our obligations under the Paris Agreement. That they had to reissue the net zero strategy, and they did that on the Green Day on March the 31st. You may recall, your listeners may recall. And actually, Friends of the Earth are now saying, well, they haven't risk assessed whether they can actually deliver these climate targets at all. And we're going to have to go back to court again. So, it's very clear that the government aren't delivering on this. And my case sort of fits in with this, in that where the government passed these road schemes, they're doing it without actually really thinking whether they can deliver our net zero targets, our climate targets, and our obligations under the Paris Agreement. And frankly, it's not responsible government.
And to finish with, while there is a judicial review going on or starting today, and until we get the outcome, of course, the work can't start. And there are those who would like to have already started these projects. So from your point of view, do you regard that as a bit of a victory already, the fact that you have at least delayed the start of these projects from going under construction?
Well, I am not out to win, things over other people. Of course, in a sense, that is a victory for road campaigners when things are delayed. But, I'm doing this for the bigger picture, that first of all, the law should be followed. And secondly, we need to better deliver our climate targets, not just in this country, but across the world. And we're failing to do that. And that's the big picture. And that's why I'm doing this. And, that's why this needs to be successful.
Dr. Andrew Boswell, thanks for joining us this morning. We have a